we were talked on the first podcast about Scott Parker bringing some unity to the team and some calmness and some balance, and everybody seemed to be back on the same page. And right now, the atmosphere is toxic. Twitter is a horrible place to be right now. I'm trying to avoid it. Fans are panicking. There is nothing coming from the club in terms of any communication. Hello, listeners, and welcome to a special edition of the No Nay Never podcast. This is your host, Natalie Brownley, and this week we are looking at what on earth is going on at Burnley Football Club. We had come on to do an analysis show of that performance away at Sunderland. Feels like it's taken somewhat of a backseat. The Clarets did, of course, succumb to their first defeat of this season, but everything else has been cast aside as there is a mass exodus at Turf Moor. Players being sold left, right and centre. Rumours that everybody is up for sale. We are concerned. We are nervous. There is little coming out of the club in terms of communication at this stage. We're here to talk about what's going on and whether or not we can make any sense of the troubled times that appear to be happening at Turf Moor this week. I am joined by regular panellists Rich Steele and Robbie. See, Robbie, you don't come on that often that I forget who you are at times. It's, of course, Robbie Kopak. I'm sorry, team. Rich, good evening. How are you?
I am good, but worried, and concerned and a little bit anxious about what's happening. It's a very uncertain time. Hopefully, we'll try and break it down as best we can. But like a lot of the fans out there, we're very confused. We've probably all got our own thoughts and feelings about what's going on. So hopefully we can dissect them in a way that's rational, but also showing that we are concerned and and to not side with the club and definitely to try and challenge the club in the best way we can.
Yeah, I completely agree. We're all concerned, and I think that's absolutely fine to be concerned. We just need to try and figure out what's going on. Robbie, the elusive Robbie Kopak, not George Poole. How are you, sir? Can you come back to the show more often? We miss you.
Yeah. It has been a few weeks, to be fair. I've not quite got the moustache that George has. You know, I mean,
or the hair. You have more than Rich does right now. Rich has once again forgotten he's on camera and has disappeared. Rich, sit down. Stay still.
But yeah, just to echo Rich's concerns, I have the same ones. Been a weird past 7 days. Obviously, something has changed because a couple of weeks ago it was relatively quiet. Like I was talking to a friend who, you don't support Burnley or anything like that. I was just asking about, transfer dealings and stuff. And I went, it's fairly quiet. I don't think we'll have to do much business in terms of incomings either because we have a relatively bloated squad. So I would expect us to lose Odebear and Sanderberg and maybe like Ezeki Amdouni, but I wouldn't think we'd have to go into the market to replace them because we had Anas Arori and Scott Twine and Johan Berg Gudmundsson like sort of in the background ready to step up. So
yeah.
But in the last 7 days, it's been a mass exodus and it's something.
And it's not slowing down.
Something's not quite right.
And something's very wrong. Yeah, it is. Well, I think that's where we're going to start off with this week. And I think we're all of that same opinion. We started the first game, the Luton game and the Cardiff game, talking about how impressive a squad we were. Yes, we knew that it was too big a squad and we needed to lose some, but people were talking in the media about us potentially being the greatest championship side there's ever been. We look so strong, give us the title now. Yes, we're going to have to get rid of a few players, but the quality that we have in the depth is ridiculous. You've got Rod Edwards saying like they're a very good side. Look at who they managed to bring on the bench. And you just think this is going to be an amazing season. I'm so excited. I'm so looking forward to it. The players seem settled. We were talked on the first podcast about Scott Parker bringing some unity to the team and some calmness and some balance, and everybody seemed to be back on the same page. And right now, the atmosphere is toxic. Twitter is a horrible place to be right now. I'm trying to avoid it. Fans are panicking. There is nothing coming from the club in terms of any communication. Now, listen, the caveat to that is, of course, we don't expect them to tell us everything. There are some things that we don't need to know or don't have a right to know. But equally, there is absolutely nothing apart from one tweet that came out from Russell Ball, which we'll come on to talk about later on as well. Before we get there, let's recap, listeners, as to where we are. We're recording this podcast on Tuesday 27th. It's about 7:15 in the evening, and we have had various other rumours going around. So I'll just confirm where we are. We've brought in Joe Worrell, centre-back from Forest, for about $5 million. We've also brought in Bashir Humphreys, a season-long loan deal with, I believe, an option to a mandatory purchase trigger, also a centre-back from Chelsea. We've got rumours of a triple signing for Mejibre, is that how you pronounce it? Hannibal Mejibre, Jeremy Sarmiento, and is that Jadon Anthony? Is that how you pronounce his first name? Yep. United, Brighton and Bournemouth, respectively, all wingers. Whether they come out, we don't know. One of them's actually starting for Brighton tonight in the Cup, when he was also supposed to be having a medical here. So who knows where they come from. But they seem to have quite strong rumours. So they're players coming in. Going out, on the other hand, this is where we're up to today. We've so far, in the space of 7 days, lost Odegaard to Spurs for 20 million, Sander Berge to Fulham for about 18 million, O'Shea to Ipswich for 10 million. He follows Muric, who'd also gone for 7 million, which we knew about at the beginning of the season. Anna Sarori's gone to Lens for 7 million. Scott Twine back to Bristol City for 2 million. Bastian's gone to Sittard, is that how you pronounce it? Just for a few 100,000. We pretty much knew he was going anyway. Alderkiel has gone to Stuttgart for an undisclosed fee, and JBG has gone to the Saudi Pro League for an undisclosed fee. There are rumours circulating about deals being done imminently for Zeki Amdouni, Lyle Foster, Coley-Oshaw, Trafford, Brownhill, Benson and Vout. That is, by anybody's standard, horrific. I mean, Robbie, where on earth do we start with that?
I'm not sure. Like I said to you before, a few weeks ago, it felt like it was going to be a relatively stable window with the amount of players we had in the background. So if we did lose players, we had players already in the building to step up. Look, I think whether players are unhappy or not, I think there has to be a point where the club have to say no.
Yeah.
Especially I mentioned in the WhatsApp group earlier on, but obviously for the benefit of the podcast, Scott Parker's going to bring in his own signings, obviously, before Friday. Whether that's enough to cover the gaps in the squad or not, we'll wait and see. But what was the point of pre-season? What was the point of rushing in? We wanted to appoint Ruben Nistelrooy. Then I assume that obviously that didn't happen. And then I think we had to sort of make a rash decision. Not a rash decision, that's probably harsh on Scott Parker, but I think we had to sort of make a quick decision. So Scott Parker had a full pre-season with a group of players. Obviously, with 2 or 3, 4 maybe expecting to leave. That squad that he took out to Spain are now probably non-existent. I think if you
what was the point? Yeah,
if you look at the squad that was at Luton, I bet 8 or 9 of them are now gone or on the verge of leaving.
Yeah.
So again, Scott Parker's going to bring in 3 or 4, maybe 5 players between now and Friday, and without a pre-season, and we're expected to challenge for promotion. I still think we'll be in and around it, possibly, but I think we're going to be so undercooked. I think Scott Parker will make us difficult to beat. I still think we'll be a relatively competitive side, but we are going to be so underprepared, and it's causing a lot of concern for us.
Yeah, it is. And Rich, I think more importantly, this could not have come at a worse week as well, in that quite unusually we've got the East Lancs Derby at the weekend, which is a profoundly important game for the fans. So you've got a board and a club that have sold everybody. It seems like everybody is for sale, ripped apart an incredible championship side that should be challenging for the title again, leaving a new manager who they've brought in to field the next era of this club with no players and an absolute uncertainty as to what he's doing. We're going to probably get beat off our rivals at the weekend for the first time in I don't know how long. And the fans are already turning on the board because we're getting no explanation from anybody. And I'm not suggesting that we've turned to that level, but you can see the distress and you can see the anger that fans, and you can understand why. This is a really toxic week in this club. How do we even manage that?
Yeah, that's quite a lot to break down. Listen,
I'm just going to let you go. So there you go.
I'm not you know what? I know, like Robbie said before, he's not looking forward to Blackburn. I've not even thought that far ahead, to be honest. I'm kind of just taking it like not even day by day, like hour by hour. Yesterday, seeing a little bit of a better news. You know, you thought Koleosho would stay now. I'm doing, even though it was looking unlikely. May stay, looked like 3 signings through the door. So in terms of playing in terms of the Blackburn game, until I know who's hitting and kind of like bit of an idea of what team will be able to put out, I think it's hard to predict that. A lot of Blackburn fans have been getting on the high horse this last week. No pun intended there, but they're still not a brilliant team. You know, they've won 2 home games against 2 promoted sides, and so
true.
You know,
that's true.
I still think we'll be able to field a decent enough side to be competitive. Like Robbie said,
Cullen though. Apparently, Cullen's injured, which is
possibly. I think obviously Hannibal will come in, which will be positive.
He looks good. Him,
but like just the unrest that is going on. I can't imagine how incredibly complex it is to run a football club. I can imagine it is incredibly difficult. I personally wasn't too impressed with Alan Pace on that documentary. I think he's a nice man, and I generally say that, and this isn't anything personal. I'll never go on a personal attack, but I do worry about his competency to run a football team. We had a bit of a discussion in our WhatsApp group about it didn't matter if he didn't know who Eric Dyer was, when I thought it was a massive issue that he didn't know who Eric Dyer was. And I'm thinking, you don't know who a player who's played in the top flight and for England over a number of years is. To me, that's like, how are you supposed to make really considered decisions when you don't know basic knowledge like that?
It comes down to him having the right people around him.
But I don't think he has.
That's the
this is the issue. I really like Matt Williams, but ultimately Matt Williams is maybe I'm being harsh on this, but he comes across to me as a really important secretary. I don't think he's a chief executive who has any is he a chief executive? I might have got that wrong, but I don't imagine
chief executive.
Operations. But I don't imagine he has much say in who comes in and who leaves. I think he just actually offers them the money. And I don't think he's going to Alan Pace, sign him, don't sell him. Do you understand where I'm coming from?
Yeah, he's not a director of football. It's not a football.
Exactly. So I think we need that role, but that's another story. I think what Alan Pace has tried to do, he's treated players like chess pieces. If we remove that if we remove that piece, we'll just put that piece in and it doesn't work like that. These are human beings. And I think what he doesn't understand is that football is more than just stats on a screen. It's about relationships on a personal and a playing level with your players. A big part of our success under Dyche wasn't the individual, but it was the team. So like I look back at when I played football, I played left back, and I played with the same left midfielder for about 5 years, and we had a pretty good relationship. And then he left, and then I was playing with somebody who I'd never played with before, and I didn't play as well because you don't have that connectivity and that relationship. And this is what's happening at the moment. We're not allowing the team to build any kind of rapport on and off the pitch. I can't remember. Sorry if I pronounce your name wrong. Adam Major or Adam Moore put a picture up. I don't know if you listen to the podcast, of all the players jumping on each other. I think it was when Vitinho scored the goal against Luton, and that didn't look like a group of players who didn't want to play for Burnley Football Club. No, because surely at the start of the summer, agents, before they came back into pre-season, said, "I don't want to be here. We're not coming back or whatever," and we can get them out the door. So it seems like in the last 2 weeks, something major has happened, and obviously Burgess left, Odeber's left, and it's kind of
we expected them to go, though, didn't we?
But then it's almost like, well, Gudmundson's left. We've let Alderkeel go. I'm honestly losing track of people, and it's just kind of like
Burge, O'Shea, Muric, Zarore, Klein, Bastian, Alderkeel, and JBG.
And it's just been this snowball, and the more players who've been allowed to leave, it's almost then like, well, I want to go, and then you can't say no to them, and it's been left with this kind of like toxic environment, which seems to be happening. There's rumours on Twitter that Foster's refusing to play or wants to go. who knows with that one? That would be the tip of the iceberg. And what do you do with a Koleosho? Do you go, no, you're not staying against your will, and he's really unhappy and he's a bit moody?
He's worth so much more than we're going to sell him for. That's the worry with him.
This is it. But if he's coming in, right, for example, if he's coming in, not putting the effort in training, moping about, not passing the ball properly, this is the thing. And I think it's been created by allowing too many players to go that we've left ourselves in this position. I don't understand, and I don't know the ins and outs of it, but surely the last time we got promoted, all our players left at the start of the transfer window, so we knew where we stood. Yeah, we had a very weak squad at the start of the season, or certainly the pre-season, the start of the season. But this has been the other way around. They've all left now, and even if we make signings, as Robbie said, they're not going to have a full pre-season with Parker. There's going to be some panic buys in the next 2 or 3 days to replace them players. And it's just caused absolute carnage. I can't imagine how the training ground is. Everybody who listens to this podcast, I presume everybody listening to this podcast has jobs.
Of course they do.
People, and they've worked with people. Imagine if you was in a workplace where seven or eight of your colleagues left in the last 9-10 days, which has happened. You'd be like, nah, I want to go. They've offered me this. I'm not staying here. This is a sinking ship.
And in a team industry as well that relies so heavily on that camaraderie and that togetherness. Exactly.
And it really feels like at the moment Burnley Football Club's a sinking ship to me. I started watching. I got my first season ticket in 2000. So obviously, you don't remember as much when you're a kid. But my first real proper football memories are the Cotterell days. And it wasn't great. The football was a bit bleak. But there always seemed a togetherness at Burnley FC with the players, the fans, the coaching staff. Where at the moment, this isn't a Burnley I recognise. It's just really.
It's sad to hear. It's really sad, and I understand. I get it. I get why you're so worried.
And the last, and I know Bob, you probably want to. The last kind of one I'll say, you said it's been toxic on Twitter, Natalie, and it has to a certain extent. You're always going to get on Twitter. There's the few similar accounts who are the moaners. And you get, but most people they'll have difference of opinions, but they're quite rational. And a lot of people who I would class as rational on Twitter and sensible aren't happy and are anxious and are frustrated.
Yeah.
And me personally, I'm 50-50 with this ALK board. Some people, that's where I am. It's like a seesaw for me.
Yeah.
And it's going in the way where I'm losing faith with them. If I'm being honest,
because I'm not there with that, and I think not. I just
don't think you understand football, Natalie. That's the problem. They may be able to understand.
Oh my god! I thought you said I don't understand football. Then
they may understand how to be able to get a good business deal, or they understand profit margins. We're signing for 5 million, we're selling for 10, and that looks good on a profit sheet, on a balance sheet. But they don't understand football, and I don't understand how you can have people in charge of some, and they don't know what it is. They don't have a clue.
Yeah.
They don't have a clue.
Yeah, I think where I am with this. Sorry, 1 second, Robbie. I will come to you in a second. I think one thing with that I will say is that I'm used to working in industries, and I'm used to in commercial senses of having businesses run by business-minded people. I don't have that same level of need that your chairman or your key decision makers at the top of a club need to have a fundamental understanding of football. If their role is to get the financials correct and the business correct, that only works in the extent where you have surrounded yourself with people who do know that and do have the skills to run the club. So if both of those things are missing, then you've got a problem for sure. That's why you have a board of directors. You have a finance director, you have a marketing director, you have a sales director. They all have their own skill sets, and you assign rights and you assign obligations to those directors to run that element of the club. So for me, I don't share that concern, but only to the extent that they have surrounded themselves and they've allocated roles to people who do understand that.
Do you think they have, though?
We're not visible to that. We don't have that visibility. We're speculating. We don't know. We don't know for sure. Yeah, but we don't know that. We don't know who in the boardroom has been allocated what role. So we can't comment on that. What I will say this week, but I am going to let Robbie come in before he kills me. what I will say this week is an absolute fundamental lesson that has to be learned from this week is better communication, because a lot of this week could have been avoided. Robbie, please carry on.
Yeah, sorry, we're just more on the point that Richard was saying how he had a season ticket since he was like 10. Like I've had a season ticket for probably around the same time, around 2000, 2001. And growing up, I used to love like Robbie Blake, Ian Moore, Glenn Little, and then more recent history, Ashley Barnes, Sam Vokes. You know, you build a connection with these players.
Yeah.
And imagine being, you know, an 8, 9, 10, 11-year-old going on Turf Moor nowadays. Who do you fall in love with? Like they had probably Anna Sarori and Manuel Benson, probably the two obvious ones, and then they were frozen out. And then
that's quite important. That's really important, actually, Robbie, with this generation, because like my nephew's 10 and he consumes football completely differently to the way we did. This generation, they don't follow teams. They don't necessarily have the same loyalty that we have. They follow players. It's about stats and player cards, and they will pick their favorite players, and then they will, like my nephew is following Messi around the world at the moment, and he'll follow the team wherever he plays. So if you're trying to get your young players to come to Burnley, who are their heroes? If they're coming for 12 months and then they're a part of this rotation, we're saying, well, they're our assets now. We're just asset stripping every year. We've got to start again. It's a really good point, Robbie.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I'm not sure I quite agree. I sit in front of two young lads, and like I say, they loved Manuel Benson, absolutely obsessed with him, and you could tell like they were completely dejected that he wasn't involved at all last season. And even at the Cardiff game, they were like shouting for Manuel Benson to come on. I don't even think he was on the bench. You know what I mean? And it's like, you know what I mean? It's like, and you could tell like they were enjoying the game and they were celebrating goals, but they wanted that one player.
Yeah.
And I think
it's what they do. They want players.
Yeah, you want a player who's like your hero.
Yeah.
When you're that age. Someone who you can sort of look up to. And when we're just sort of like basically asset stripping.
Yeah.
It's sort of sad to see.
Yeah, it really is. Well, I think one of the things that I wanted to dissect on this one is to what is happening. Can we try and understand it? And the caveat to this, of course, everybody says that none of us know. We've not had any communication, and nor will we likely to have. At some point this is going to come out, but we're having to speculate at the moment, and we're having to voice our concerns based on what we've seen. And I'm sorry, Burnley Football Club, but if these things are going to happen and the information is not going to be dissected to us as to why, then you're going to have to expect that fans are going to speculate, because what else are we going to do? We don't have it. And we were going to leave this to last, but given the way that the conversation has left, I'm going to start with this. Rich, we talked a lot about the toxic dressing room last season under Company, how bad it was last season, how the engagement wasn't there, everybody had their heads down, there were no leaders in the dressing room. I guess my question mark becomes, has him leaving, has what's happened over the last 12 months under Company left a toxic upset within the club and these players that actually we never actually stood any chance of keeping these players because they just want out? Could that be one of the reasons why this is happening?
I think a lot of damage has been done by the Vince. I don't like to use him personally, but the Vincent Company era and this reign. You were on the mission to Burnley that people had if Finney leave clauses, and do not be surprised if
I haven't seen
it. You've not seen that bit?
No, I haven't got up to that bit yet. I watched it all.
I thought that was the first episode.
I'm a bit behind. Carry on.
You're gonna watch 5.
I've watched 10 minutes. That's all I've watched so far.
I'm pretty sure it's the first episode, but honestly, like you were saying, agents are ringing and asking, well, what happens if Vincent leave clauses? So don't be surprised if some of them clauses have been in there. Like, honestly, it wouldn't surprise me what agents try and negotiate. But yeah, there was definitely. Listen, there's players who's only come to Burnley because of Vincent Company, did not come to the club, and I get players signed for certain managers, etc. Like I said, Tarky's. He didn't sign for Dyche at Everton, did he? Actually, it's a bad example, Tarky, but you get where I'm coming from. But yeah, and I think ultimately, when you're losing games week after week and you're not playing well, it's going to cause issues in the dressing room. It's not going to cause that togetherness. Winning breeds team spirit, ultimately. And I think there's a lot of stains that's been left from that era. And I remember reading an article, and again, people said, no, it's nonsense, and all this stuff seems like it's more true now. That I think somebody, was it maybe Cork, who was the captain, or Brownley, organised a team meal and only like 7 players turned up. So I think that just shows that the squad is completely split. And we can go back to Company last season saying he didn't need to split that squad up so much. He should have given Zaroury, Benson more chances. We didn't need some of these new players. And you can imagine that from last season, Odebear and Koleos, even though they played half a season, were 2 of our key performers. You know, they're very, very good, young, talented players. If you've got any kind of like logic to you kind of go, right, them 2 have got a really high chance of leaving. So get Zaroury and Benson in a room, sit to them like adults and go, I know it didn't work for you with Company. Are you disappointed? You're going to be key players for us this season. And them 2 players, in my opinion, should be at the club now. You know, we've sold Zaroury for like €9 million. It's peanuts, in my opinion, for what he's worth for, or for what he could be worth. Benson and it seems like they just don't want to be here now. And it's like, I don't know if that's conversation has happened with them 2, or if they've just kind of like been left. This is what it seems like to me. They just don't get treated like human beings. They just get treated like assets. Yeah, I might be wrong on that. That's just, again, that is purely my interpretation on that situation. And I think, like I said, Company, the way he left, how Pace idolised him and put his full truth in him, and him leaving now is we are picking up. We are picking up ultimately the pieces from that. So.
Yeah, so it's urgent to jump in as well.
Please
we wanted to follow like the model that Brighton have got in terms of, you know, they always have a player in the building when one player leaves. So to follow that model, we should be fighting to keep hold of Zaroury and Benson this summer.
Yeah.
And those moving on. So if Zaroury, let's say Zaroury gets a big money move this summer, we had Wilson Odebear in the building, who's probably been out on loan somewhere, or Luca Koleosho. That's what I thought the whole point of last summer was.
Yeah, we all did.
Stock up, Odebear, Koleosho, maybe go out on loan, or they're just in the background, a few cameo minutes here and there. But Zaroury and Benson are your 2 main wide men. But it felt like Vincent Kompany sort of jumped the gun a little bit and went, no, these 2 players are really good. Let's give them the minutes they deserve. And to be fair, and like Richard said, Odebear had a really good season last year and deserved his big money move. But then to sort of completely freeze out Ioannis Zarouris, who again was a key performer in the Championship. His number, like he sort of had a little bit of a drop off in the second half of the Championship season, but was still a decent player. And there's absolutely no reason why he couldn't do it again this season. And like when he come on against Luton, it felt like he was going to be part of the squad. So then for him to move on, it was like a bit of a shame, because I thought it was quite telling that Benson's not got any minutes, but then Weghorst did. But then Weghorst wasn't in the squad at Sunderland, and it's like, I have no idea what's going on.
Yeah.
It does feel like whether there is like these Vincent Kompany clauses and players has gone, okay, but you can go. And now it's like, okay, we'll just do a Scott Parker kind of recruitment strategy, because that's the way it feels now in terms of like the players that are coming in. They feel more Scott Parker-like rather than, 18, 19-year-olds from France and Belgium.
How do you feel about that, Robbie?
What, they were going for more like Championship? I think we got a bigger chance of connecting to these players, and players who are probably less likely to throw the toys out the pram if we don't go up, hopefully. I mean,
okay, but then that gives you a different perspective on that, though. So yes, I agree with that, but it also gives us less of an effective chance of getting promotion, maybe. So what do you take? Do you take connectivity with the players over immediate promotion back to the Premier League?
I've always said throughout last season, we always bemoaned the lack of. I wouldn't say that like no players tried last season, but there were many times where I felt like the players weren't trying.
Yeah.
But that was
came
always
across that way, didn't it?
It was always, that was a more irrational Robbie when I'm at the game going, like, fuck these players, blah, 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 blah. But I can legislate for a lack of quality.
Yeah.
If we lose a game 1-0, 2-0, whatever, I'm like, fine. Like on after 90 minutes, I might be a little bit frustrated. I might vent a little bit on Twitter, but then in like, it's just one of those. It's just one of those days. Blah 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 blah. But there were many
Robbie
times,
vent.
but there were many times last season where I left early, and I had Alan Pace moaning at me on the documentary. but that was because I felt like those players weren't giving 110%.
It works both ways. You can't have both of these things, and we just keep trying to explain this to them. It's like,
I felt like those players weren't playing for the badge. Like, I understand like where we want to be. I have no problem with players using Burnley Football Club as a stepping stone club. I have absolutely no problem with that.
As long as it's done in the right way.
As long as like Michael Keane is a really good example of where we brought him in £3 million from Man United. Dwight McNeil's another good example.
You know, and respectful. Like Collie Ocean's like unfollowed it on Instagram and stuff.
Yeah. You can even use like Chris Wood sort of left under a cloud.
Yeah, we don't mention him on this show.
But we still got a good 4 or 5 years out of him, and we doubled our money on him. You know, Alan Pace loves doubling his money. Like, don't get me wrong, but it's a really good example of like players who do really well at Burnley Football Club and go on to bigger and better things.
But it's like Collie Ocean. He was playing in Espanyol reserves. He's done his ACL. We rehabbed him all the way through that. Stuck by him. Yeah, and then he's on about leaving.
Where you were chatting before, I had a look at like Luke Collioshal's stats.
You know,
he's played 17 games for Burnley Football Club, and we've been offered £20 million for him when we bought him for 3. And it's like, if you're Wolverhampton Wanderers and you're trying to be like shrewd, you don't go spend £20 million on Luke Colliosha.
If that happened at the start of the summer, you'd have gone great, good value.
Yeah.
And if the Odebeer one happened at the start of the summer, you'd have gone great. And then you go, do you know what? Like,
it's on the back of everything else, isn't it?
The Rui and Benson stand up, but it's on the back of like everything else where you just like, but like, right, let's flip this and go, do you know what? I've actually, the pace, we've all been asking for pace and to actually stand firm and the club to stand firm. It sounds like they've said no. So will they continue with that stance, or is Colliosha gonna, like I was saying before, is he gonna show that much of a bad attitude? There's a part of me, right, whereas we're talking about Burnley Football Club using players as stepping stones. If Colliosha refuses to, or we just said, right, we're not selling you, they've not met, we value at 30. Nobody's matched that, and he refuses to play, just fine him until he plays, and then he's got no choice, because then what that'll do for future players looking to do that, they know that they can't take the mickey out of the club, because because there's player power is winning over the club now at the moment. Your employees are starting to rule the roost. Now I know it's completely different, but kind of like taking it into my world as a teacher, if I let one kid do something that they want to do that's a little bit against the rules, etc., the rest of the kids will follow suit. And this is kind of like, so I know it's the football club, it's a lot more complex than that, but that's kind of like what I feel has happened at the moment. He's probably lost a couple of his mates and gone, I'm kicking, I'm going to get my agent to say this, I'm going to ring that Sasha, who's obviously got good weight with Burnley fans. Because these players' agents, they'll know who kind of like Burnley fans interact with on Twitter. So they'll know that Sasha's somebody who they interact with. So that, in my opinion, this is what happened with Colliosha. We've rejected a bid, said he's not going, and his agents put it out there that he wants to go, he's not happening, and he's maybe like refusing to play. But then we say, no, what does Colliosha do? Does he not play till January?
Well, this is it. It's like you got from Wolves' point of view, you got a £20 million asset sat there, but it's going down in value then, who's then not playing. Exactly. And I also think my counter argument to your point, Richard, is that what kind of method we want to sign young upcoming players and develop them and sell them on for profit.
Yeah,
if we're competing with other clubs to bring in some young lad from
you're right.
Hypothetically, what kind of message is it saying? I say, but if
you signed a contract, You have signed. I get where you're coming from, but you can't just you cannot let your employees rule the roost. There's got to be some. You've got to at times be strong and send that message. And
usually like.
But if you're asking about, but let's say but let's say if they're asking about leaving or about stepping stones, they're red flags to me. Burnley Football Club is a massive club. It's an historic club. They shouldn't just I get what you're saying about a stepping stone, but they should feel. They should feel really proud and privileged to play for this football club.
Yeah, I think the players that come join us knowing that they have a really good opportunity to really like enhance their careers. Like I always look at like Peterborough are a really good example of like your Ivan Toney's and like there's been loads that come through at like Peterborough. I can't remember them off the top of my head, but they always look back at Peterborough and always like say really good things about that place. And if I'm like a footballer in like non-league, and like Peterborough link with me, I'm going to like push to go to Peterborough.
Yeah, but Brentford haven't just bent over backwards and let Tony go.
No,
we seem to just be letting players go left, right, and centre for not, in my opinion, other than Odeberg, for not great fees. If I'm being honest, I thought we should have got more for Burge.
Well, this brings me on to what I'm speculating might be another rationale behind what is happening at the club. We've obviously gone through the potential toxicity and the VK issues. We do need to think about whether or not any of this is linked to UEFA's financial sustainability regulations, which has replaced FFP. Now, bear with me, listeners. I'm just going to put this out here. We might not think that this has anything to do with it, but I think some of this has to have come into this. For those of you who aren't up to speed with the new regulations, 3 different rules that I've got my notes here, so I've got my head down. 3 different rules. No overdue payments rules. Speaks for itself. Every quarter, your accounts get checked to make sure that you are not missing any payments. Second one is the football earnings rule. And what that states is that you can lose up to 60 million over a 3-year period, which can increase by an extra 10 million. This is in euros, if you are in good financial health. So over 3, and the year runs from 1st of August to the 31st of July calendar years to make sure you always have a summer transfer window in there, not the season. So you can only lose 60 million over a 3-year period. And then the third rule is a squad cost rule. Now, this is linked to the spending on wages for players, head coaches, transfers, and agency fees. And this is capped at 70% of your revenue. And all of these rules are then based on solvency, stability, and cost control. So how does that look from our perspective? Well, since this came in, and it's not been in for very long, July 2022 to July 2023, we had a turnover of 64.9 million. That was our championship year, which means that we could only spend 45 million. Now, we had losses that year of 28 million, but because we'd had a profit of 26 million the year before, because we'd sold all of our Premier League players when the end of the Dyches regime, we were okay. We are not in any breach there. This last year that's come in, we don't know yet what our figures were, but based on previous Premier League campaigns, it's likely that our turnover is going to be 123.4 million, which is what it was up to 2022, which is our last Premier League campaign. So let's assume that our likely turnover then is 123.4 million. We're already at a loss of 28 million, so that just makes it 100 million. So we can only spend 70 million. Otherwise, we're in breach.
Yeah.
We then now need to look at, okay, so we've now done this. We now need to look at, fast forward to July 2025. We're back in the championship again. So again, if we can assume that our revenue is going to drop to 64.9 million again, we are potentially at best break even if we've not already had a loss because of so we've got 26 million out of the 60 million already a loss from 2 years ago. We might be at a loss last year because of the players we spent in building Vincent Kompany's 200 million pound player profit, and we've only got 123 million turnover, and we've got 64.9 million. So we have potentially got next season already the 60 million losses over the 3-year period for the football earnings rule and our squad cost rule is going to be likely well over 70%, which will be what it'll be, back to 45 million again. So with that in mind, we absolutely have to have sold players this season. My question mark then becomes whether, was it enough? We've earned 10 million in compensation for company, 20 million to Odegaard, 80 million for Berge, and 10 million for O'Shea, and 7 million for Ipswich. That's 30, 40, 50. That's 57 million. That, to me, based on that figures, means that if we stopped at Murich, we could potentially be all right next summer without selling anybody else. Yeah. Now, can I put a massive caveat to this? Listeners, I am not holding myself out to be any sort of financial stability regulation, sustainability regulations. Those figures are based on hypothetical figures from 2 or 3 years ago. But I can't help but think, Robbie, that we didn't need to sell as. I think we've had to sell up to maybe Murich, but based on those figures, this feels like we've gone too far to me.
Yeah. I think we all agree that 2 or 3 players would definitely leave, but it's just something has happened in that football club in the last 7 to 10 days, which has caused this mass exodus, because it felt like a settled group of players where we won the first 2 games. We just sold Odegaard, but there was no rumours about, Gudmundsson leaving, and Darragh O'Shea had a little bit of speculation and stuff, but there was also like a little bit of optimism thinking, we might just keep Darragh O'Shea. But it feels like since Darragh O'Shea's left, or since those talks progressed, it's sort of something's happened in that dressing room or around that football club where it's just gone all downhill. And now it feels like every single player is up for sale.
Yeah, which feels too much.
5 weeks ago, if you like say you go back to the Luton game, and that picture which Rich mentioned, where they're all jumping and on top of each other after Vitinho scored, it felt like a really united group. And you have the players doing the full-time celebrations with the fans and stuff. It felt like we had our club back.
Yeah, it did.
And then, something's happened again, and I don't like it.
Yeah. So based on all of that, Rich, where do we go from here? I'm conscious that we could talk about this for hours, and I want to keep this within a reasonable, because this might be out of date in the next 24 hours.
Yeah.
As at Tuesday night, we've gone through what we've talked about. We've got it out of our system. What do you need as a fan? What do you need the club to do this week?
I think a lot of damage has already been done. From my point of view, and I think from a lot of people.
Is it recoverable for you?
Listen, results will result in football. I always say this. It's kind of like when you're winning, everything seems great, and when you're losing, everything seems really not great. But I think this is the off-field stuff is kind of like is outweighing any type of on-field stuff at the moment. I can't see us. Listen, we're not a Premier League club anymore, so I don't expect us to replace players of Odegaard and Koleosho's quality if Koleosho does end up going. But then for me, it should have been, I keep going on about it because it's really wound me up, actually. Like, then I would have wanted Zaroury and Benson to come in. I don't think we're going to replace them with players of that quality. We might do, because I don't want to be unfair to some of the other lads. I think Hannibal's a really good signing. I'm really impressed with him. With the other two, I'm a bit not non-plus really. Like, that Sarmiento, if it turned out that he was he didn't come or he went somewhere else, it wouldn't bother me. Anthony didn't do great at Leeds, but he done well under Parker, so I can see the logic in that one. But I don't know too much about him. I think you can only really judge it fully what happens on Friday night. What happens by Friday night. Let's say worst case scenario for me is in terms of, I think we expect Benson. Well, Amdouni's going. I think we expect Benson, Vegas to go. Trafford with 50-50. But let's say Brownell, Koleosho and Foster all go, because they seem to be the strongest rumours, M3. And we sign them, and we might get 3 or 4 players in at this stage. It's not good. It's not good. But let's say Foster stays, somehow Koleosho stays, and we get him playing. and we had 3-4 more players, I think it does look better. But I'm just really fearing the worst, Natalie. I can't see. I think I don't know about Brownhill. I'm torn. I think there's a bit of maybe Brownhill maybe looking at getting a new contract too. I might be wrong on this, but
I think so. It would make sense if he wants to. Obviously, I said before, he's a northern lad.
Yeah, I can't see him going to Turkey, Brownhill.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Age now.
Nah.
Like,
the rumours are now that Premier League clubs are sniffing around like
he's not good enough for me.
No, I don't believe that.
I'm like, I can't see a club like Wolves, like Nottingham Forest, who are on the breach of PSR regulations.
But Forest are going for like lads who are playing for like Mexico and Argentina at the moment and stuff.
Like 21, 22-year-olds. Why would they spend money on a 28, 29-year-old who's got one when he could get him free next year? It makes no sense. So I'm you, Rick. I think it's agent.
Brownhill's not going anywhere. I'll be amazed if he is.
If I had to put money on it, though, I would say Koleosho will go.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I think he will now. Foster, I don't know what to believe. But do you know what it is? I know there's rumours, but like about him refusing to play or whatnot. But sometimes there's no, the rumours seem to be like, for the first time with me recently with Twitter, these rumours of, he's going, you feel all the nonsense at first, and then they seem to be like true.
There's no smoke without fire, is there?
So like something like Robbie said, so I don't know what, something's gone on, whether there's like, they've come in and said somebody's not going, or we're not selling any more players, and then all of a sudden players are going. You could see how dejected the Parker, Esteve and Brownhill was after we lost to Sunderland, and it wasn't.
Yeah. That was bad. I didn't even. I just saw. I didn't even watch the post-match interviews like straight away because I was so dejected after that performance. I was like, I'm just staying off Twitter. But then I had like people messaging me going, Parker looks fuming. And I was like, it's probably just because we've lost and we were crap. Like, you can sort of understand. But then when you actually watch it, it's like,
it's more.
And it wasn't because of a little bit because of the defeat. It's because of what's going on.
Yeah, even like Esteve looked absolutely distraught.
He seems a really good lad in, by the way.
I like him a lot.
I know he put like a story.
You know what? If Brownhill does go, give him the armband.
Yeah, do you know what? If Brownhill goes, I think that does indicate to me there's
something's gone wrong.
Yeah, I think let's see what happens come Friday. But I think there's a lot of damage that's been done within that squad, and like Robbie said, we're not going to have we've gone from a team that, in my opinion, was pretty much guaranteed going up. Even if like Odeberg, Burge and Amdouni went, we would have gone up.
Not so much anyway.
And even like you sell Trafford for 20 million, you just play Hladkin, and we've gone to like, who are we going to put out on the park? Like,
I don't know what the team's going to look like on Saturday.
Who's going to play tomorrow? Who's going to play Saturday? And it's like you're like Egan Riley starting line. You're like, God Almighty! And I thought he did all right actually. But
I thought if any player come out with
you credit, it was him.
It was probably Egan Riley, to be fair.
Yeah, I think him and Esteve played well together. But
I thought we defended relatively.
Yeah, we did all right, didn't we?
I can't think of many saves that Trafford had to make. So defensively, I thought we were solid. I thought we were conceding a lot of moments.
Yeah,
but it was proper bodies on the line stuff where I'm like,
there wasn't like a lack of effort.
Anyway,
but
it was just you could tell we were stretched in the third, where it was like Vitinho,
which is where we're selling everybody as well, which is not great.
It's like I understand Alder Keel going. He's not going to play this year. I personally think getting 15 million for O'Shea is good business. Like, I know I've said what I feel about O'Shea. I'm not going to just go back on it because he's had a couple of good games in the Championship. I don't think he's good enough for the Premier League. And if it can consistently, like you look at him compared to the levels Tarky and me were playing at, he's nowhere near when they. But I hope he proves me wrong because I genuinely like him and he seems a good lad. But selling these attacking players.
It's not good. Well, let's see where we get to at the weekend. I think you're absolutely right. Let's see where we get to on Friday night, listeners. We'll try and catch up with you on Friday night to see where we've got to ahead of the East Lancs derby. We're going to get the preview shot there and see what on earth is going to happen there. keep calm, listeners. We're going to try our best to ride this storm. At some point, we're going to get some kind of communication from the club. The FAB have got a meeting in September, which I'm sure this will be number one on the agenda to try and sort out what's going on. Just try and keep calm. Try and be kind to each other. Try not to spread rumours on Twitter that's going to keep the echo chamber going, and pray that we get to keep at least a few of these players. And let's reassess on Friday. Rich, Robbie, thank you so much for joining me. That's not been an easy podcast, and your calmness and your balance and your sensible rationale has been really appreciated. So thank you both. Listeners, don't forget to hit that subscribe button before you go. It's right there on the bottom. But more importantly, leave us some comments. Decide, let us know how you're feeling about this week. What do you need to see? And how important is this derby at the weekend, or is actually that now paled into insignificance? I've been Natalie Bromley. This has been the No Nay Never podcast. Until next time.
The No Nay Never podcast is brought to you in association with the talkSPORT Fan Network. Our host and editor is Natalie Bromley, and the show is produced by Matt Moss. Our resident statistician is Dave Roberts, and our FPL expert is Adam Dennett. The Analysis Show team is collectively Tom Whittaker, Rich Steele, George Poole, Charlotte Rigby and Adam Dennett. Our music is provided by George Gaskell, and our newsletter team is headed up by Jamie Smith. If you don't already, you can subscribe to our newsletter by visiting nonaynever.substack.com. Thanks as ever go to our partners talkSPORT. We are proud to be associated with the talkSPORT Fan Network.